there's obviously a lot of talk about Damian Lillard, official trade request out of Portland. What's your thoughts on that so far before I, ask you any questions?
I'm excited. I'm excited. I feel like I haven't been um, excited about a trade request like this in a while. I think mainly just because it's kind of a shock. I know it's the expected move here, and it makes the most sense for both teams. But um, for years, Dame has just talked about, loyalty, and he wants to finish his career in Portland and all of that. So I never have pictured him playing anywhere other than Portland. So it's interesting. I'm very interested to see what happens uh, the next coming weeks here. Who knows? The trade could happen
Hmm.
tomorrow, like it could happen tonight.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't even know like what the right package would be for him. Um, we Timberwolves traded for 100 first round picks for Rudy Gobert. Like how many picks is Damian Lillard gonna require? So
Hmm.
it'll be very interesting to see what the package ends up being and where he ends up um playing next year.
Yeah. No, definitely. I mean, I think if I'm not mistaken, Damian Lillard is 33,
That sounds about
32,
right.
32. So if you're a young team, would you trade like a rising star for Damian Lillard? Or even if, say, like, let's just say if you're like Philly or Miami, would you trade Tyrese Maxey or Tyler Hero for Damian Lillard to kind of get the best out of your current roster?
I think you do. I
Okay.
think at this point the upside is just there's too much value there.
Yeah, yeah.
Damian Lillard at his best is we were arguing him or Steph as the number one point guard in the league. Like he's in
Yep.
that conversation. I know he's had injuries these past couple of seasons, and that's kind of made people think that this could be, like the downslope of his career. But
Yeah.
I think he definitely brings that much value where you give up a young piece like that if it means competing for a championship.
Yeah. For me, yeah, personally, I also agree. Like, I think it's a no-brainer, but people might look back on that and just say, like, oh, why did you trade Tyrese Maxey
Hmm.
or Tyler Hero? And, like, they're this type of player right now. Like, that's kind of what people are doing with the Rudy Gobert trade and looking at Walker Kessler and kind of saying, like, oh my God, why did you trade Walker Kessler and all these picks? Like, this guy is amazing and he's like Rookie of the Year candidate. Like, why would you do that? But, like, when you look at it in the present, it's like, for Minnesota, for example, like you're acquiring a multi-time defensive player of the year to pair
Hmm.
with an all NBA big man. Like it just seems like a no-brainer. And you keep, your young core, your important young core,
Yeah,
which is Anthony Edwards and Jaden McDaniels.
yeah,
So that's like a no-brainer. But I feel like when you're looking at with Philly and Miami, it's kind of like the same thing. Like, yeah, Tyrese Maxey's, really good for us. Tyler Hero's been really good for us, but it's like if we want to take that next step, and Philly's example is like maximizing Joel Embiid, and Miami's example is kind of maximizing, the rest of the time you have with Jimmy Butler, who's getting up there in
hmm,
age too. It's like we got to make these moves. We don't need to think about the what if or anything like that. I think if you compare Damian Lillard in those type of environments, especially
hmm,
in Miami, which is like I think the main team that Dame wants to go to. I mean, it can be a difference between, conference finals and a championship because we've seen Miami time and time again go, far in the playoffs with, their current roster of just like a lot of good role players, but, not too much surrounding star talent outside
yeah,
of Bam and Jimmy. So if you can add a guy like Damian Lillard to that mix, it's like even if he does fall off a little bit given his age, I mean that's still a lot of production that you're getting there. And
yeah,
I know Miami also, kind of went for a point guard a few years ago with Kyle Lowry, who at the time was an all-star and it
hmm,
just seemed like a perfect pairing. I think I would argue that they've gotten a lot of good production out of Kyle Lowry, but it's just not the same that he did in Toronto. So I think if you kind of can get that star level point guard play, especially scoring, which is what Damian Lillard's specialty is,
Hmm.
surrounded by the defensive and just offensive versatility that Bam provides and Jimmy provides. I think it's a perfect match, especially with the Heat culture and everything like that, for them to kind of make that jump. Because I don't think it was a fluke that they went to the finals this year, but I don't think it's sustainable being an eight seed, obviously, to kind of
Right.
expect that to happen and take down number one season, like take down number two seeds and things like that. So I think they kind of need that move, especially losing Gabe Vincent and Max Juice this offseason. They kind of need that that move to kind of keep them atop. So I think it is
Hmm.
worth trading Tyler Hero. Um, but yeah, for Philly's example, I mean, we obviously saw that James Harden's kind of requesting a trade out of there. Um, so it's kind of a little bit more tricky. It's like, okay, so what are we gonna do now if Dame's available, but it's not like we can just trade James Harden for Dame because I don't think that's what Portland want. I think
Right.
Portland want to go young. So maybe facilitate a three team. I know Miami was talking about facilitating a three team to
I feel like
involve like
there would have
Brooklyn.
to be a third team involved.
Yeah. So it's like if you are going to involve like two-star players in a trade, it's going to have to be a three team, I would imagine. So it's a little bit tougher for Philly than it is for Miami, I would say, just because it's not like people have requested trades out of Miami. Miami's been trying
Hmm.
to go after Dame for a long time. I
Right.
think this is their move. This is their move to make, and especially with Dame's interest, I think it's a matter of time before he goes there. And it seems like the package would be somewhere around like Tyler Hero and Duncan Robinson with picks. And I
Hmm.
think both teams are comfortable doing that, even Miami. So I don't think Miami don't really hold back anything. Like they'll do the trade if they need to. They went to the finals without Tyler Hero, so I think they know that okay, we don't necessarily need Tyler Hero around, even though he's a really good player for us. He got paid
Hmm.
recently, but it's Damian Lillard we're talking about. So forget the what ifs. I think just go for what seems right. And I think both sides, it seems like it's a perfect match. So I think that's why Miami seems like the right fit for me.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. Um, and I also think that Tyler Hero is kind of the perfect type of player that Portland would be looking for to get in return. Um, the young up
Who
and
is that?
coming
Who is that you said?
Tyler Hero.
Tyler Hero, yeah.
He's like the perfect kind of player that Portland would be trying to get in return. Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
along
I
with
was
a lot of
thinking
draft
about that.
picks. But
I was thinking about that too, because like, Portland do have, even without Dame, they have a lot of good guards now with Scoot, Shaden Sharp, and
mhm,
Simons. So like I was wondering like how would Tyler Hero fit in that role? Because I know Tyler Hero's had, he's been wanting to start, and even though he's had a lot of success off the bench, I think if he
yeah,
went to Portland, he should start. But just given what the type of contract he's on and everything like that, like his production, so I was wondering, like, how would he fit with Portland because of their guard play and like I
yeah,
think they have they have the hopes for Scoot and Shaden to kind of be that backcourt of the future for them. So I was wondering that too, like when I was thinking about Portland and Miami. Like obviously Tyler Hero is the main guy you'd want to involve in the deal, but would Tyler Hero be going to Portland or would he be going to the third team? That's what I'm trying to figure out.
that's a good point. Because yeah, Tyler Hero, I mean, he could slide to the three, but um, defensively they're gonna struggle if that's their they have Maxi and Tyler Hero out there,
Mm-hmm.
and they just signed
Yeah,
Jeremy Grant to you know 5 years, what $4 billion, 160 million.
for something like that. Yeah, I mean,
So it is kind of a tricky situation, and yeah, I guess that would make sense. He probably would go to that third team, but
yeah.
then I don't know who that third team would be. I don't know who.
Because I was just thinking about like recent trades, and I was like, okay, the James Harden trade from Houston. Um, Houston didn't end up getting any of the guys from Brooklyn, which was Karis LeVert and Jared Allen. Like those guys went to the third team.
Hmm.
So, I mean, is it something around that Portland's looking for, where they're just like getting, I guess, draft picks? Um, but I'm sure Portland wants somebody like promising back in terms of like a player in return because even when that trade happened with Houston and Harden, I was just like, dang, Houston really didn't get anything like special, for a guy like James Harden. So I'm like, maybe I'm looking at that and I'm like, okay, so sure, Tyler Hero could go to that third team, but I'm thinking Portland probably wants something that can help their core right now, So maybe
Do
that
you
third
think
team involves a player.
Bam's an untouchable piece?
Bam is untouchable. Yeah, there's no way.
Okay.
Yeah, there's no
Even
way.
even
Just
if
from
Portland gives Dame and a few picks,
I don't think there's any way because it's like part of the reason
and
Dame
have
wants to go to
Cody Zeller
Miami.
as your starting center.
Yeah, there's no way. But yeah, Dame wants to play with Bam, so it's like
Hmm.
that's and also like Miami wouldn't even consider anything for Bam. I feel like at this point.
Yeah.
So, I mean, yeah, I just think, um, for example, like it was a long time ago, but the Andrew Wiggins Kevin Love trade, right? Kevin Love was a superstar at that point,
Hmm.
um, and it was a three-team deal, and Minnesota. I don't remember them getting anything too much from Cleveland besides Wiggins, but they involved a third team, which was the Sixers, and got Thaddeus Young off the Sixers. So I think if you think of like a deal where Portland get a player, they're the best player Portland get is off of that third team, then
Hmm.
it makes more sense to kind of fill a positional need, than kind of trying to fill up your backcourt with like Tyler Hero. It kind of complicate things, I would think, a little bit for the development of their young backcourt.
Yeah.
And also like Anthony Simons too. Anthony Simons is he's the name that's getting left out here, but he also needs some minutes, which I would expect to be off the bench. So don't want to complicate too much of the backcourt with a guy like that. So
Yeah.
um, yeah, I was just thinking about it for a little bit. I also wanted to ask you. Uh, so I've seen like the Clippers kind of get thrown out there in terms of teams that are like looking at Damian Lillard. So if you're the Clippers, would you try to pair Damian Lillard with Kawhi and Paul George? Or would you like kind of look at where you're at right now if you're the Clippers and be like, okay, we're already in a tough situation with these two guys not being able to get on the court together. Do we
Hmm.
want to kind of do this other move to, have a big three of just veteran players who might not be able to play together? Or do we kind of just want to like, go for it all and get Damian Lillard if you're the Clippers?
Yeah, I don't. I feel like that one makes a little bit less sense for the Clippers
Okay.
to do. Uh,
Okay.
just in the sense of, I mean, yeah, on paper it sounds great. Obviously, you have Paul George, Kawhi, and Damian Lillard, but I don't know. I feel like they're just. I feel like they're the. I feel like the pieces they're missing isn't another star. I feel like they have
Yeah.
um, some other holes in that team, and I feel like if healthy, Kawhi and Paul George are still good enough to compete and still be, one of the best duos in the league. We just haven't really seen that quite yet. Um, but I don't think
Hmm.
I think throwing Dame there doesn't necessarily help that. Plus, I'm not sure whatever that package would be that the Clippers would have to give up. Um, I already feel like they don't have a whole lot of assets without giving up
Well,
one of their main pieces.
yeah. That's the thing. I mean, their young assets aren't the best. I mean, all they have really I can think of is Terrence Mann and Bones Highland.
Yeah,
Um, so it's not really as appealing, especially if you're
I just
Portland.
can't imagine that they'd be able to give them the best offer that Portland would get. I feel like they will get better offers from other teams. So,
That's true. I'm just thinking maybe the Clippers management are kind of like accepting that PG and Kawhi can't get it done.
mhm.
So maybe they're just trying to look for that like next big move before time runs out with Kawhi and PG. You know, so I mean, obviously it's kind of been disappointing, I guess, if you look at it that pairing.
Mhm.
But I know they did go to one conference finals, but like, yeah, I just think maybe they'd want to go after another like big name player because that's kind of like their MO, like what you'd expect out of them. Um, but I
Yeah,
wouldn't,
they did it with Russ, going
exactly,
after Russ
they
this
just go
year.
after they go after like big name players. So I wouldn't. be surprised, but at the same time, like, yeah, I don't think they have the assets. It'd also have to be a third team involved in that for sure because
Mm,
they don't have
contracts
the
are
most
crazy.
appealing draft picks. They don't have the most appealing like surrounding cast around Kawhi and PG for Portland to want either.
Hmm.
So it's like I don't see it working, but I just saw that that was another team that was involved. And I also saw Minnesota, so I don't know how realistic that is, but like say if you're Minnesota, would you trade Jaden McDaniels for Damian Lillard? Would you involve him?
No, I have to say
No.
no. I have to say
Okay.
no, and I know it's probably just the Timberwolves bias in me or whatever, but I really think that Jaden McDaniels is a special player.
Hmm.
Um, and I think he's a very important piece to this team.
Yeah.
I mean, when I didn't think that we had the best chance in the playoffs, of course, but I did have a little bit of hope going into it up until um Jaden McDaniels
Hmm.
report came out, and then
Yeah.
I figured we just had no hope, just because that's
Yeah.
how important of a piece he is to at least our defense. Um, and he showed some glimpses of being pretty good on the offensive side. I feel like he has a lot of upside, so
Hmm. Yeah.
I think
I
I'd
don't think
rather
it's
have that.
then Dame.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I feel like I feel like I'd rather just ride with our young core than I don't know. I remember bringing in Jimmy Butler, another vet who was
Yep.
supposed to help us
Yep.
take that next step, and it took us, 5 steps back. So obviously everything worked out for both parties. I mean, we're still not quite in that conversation, but we have Anthony Edwards now, where we have a solid young team.
Mm.
Um, but I don't know. Then again, maybe that Dame could be the missing piece. We've needed a point guard like that for a long time. It's pretty much all Timberwolves fans have been asking for. So, but I don't
Yeah.
want to give up Jaden.
Yeah, I mean, I just feel like it's not even bias. I just don't think people around the league realize the value of Jaden McDaniels. You
Hmm.
know, for one, he's going to be on a good contract even when he gets re-signed. So he's still going to be on a good contract. And also like I just think the versatility and like the offensive upside for him
Hmm.
to build is like so crazy that like you need to keep him around, you know. I heard like around the NBA draft, like a lot of teams were asking when Minnesota was trying to get back into the first round, teams were asking for Jaden McDaniels, and
Hmm.
Minnesota rejected everything for like, everything. And it's not even like they're valuing him too highly. It's just they know what he can become. That's why they were so certain not to include him in any
Yeah.
Rudy Gobert trade. And from here on out, why would they trade him, especially for like just a first round pick? So it's just like for Dame, I mean, yeah, you think about it, but at the same time, it's like, we already went this far. Like, he has so much upside and he fits this team perfectly. This team of like, a lot of offensive talent. Like he's like that perfect blend of offense and defense that you
Yeah.
need. Like you need those type of players, and he is going to be the future of this franchise in Minnesota's eyes. So it's like they're not just going to trade him away for anybody. But I think for Damian Lillard, you kind of do need to scratch your head, and maybe like think about it a little bit, because we have those fan favorites of like Jaden McDaniels and Nas Reed, guys that like the league doesn't really know about. But I think when it comes to Damian Lillard, and if the Portland just wanted like Jaden McDaniels, Nas Reed, and a package of picks, I mean, you would think about it. You got to think about it. I feel like, but yeah, it's just like we value those guys so highly, but they do have a lot of value and they're underrated around the league. So, you know, personally, um, I think Timberwolves fans would actually be more willing to trade um, Cat for Damian Lillard. Like that's a no-brainer for Timberwolves fans to trade Cat because they obviously are kind
I've
of
seen
done with
that a
Cat at
lot.
this point. Yeah. So would you trade Cat for Damian Lillard?
No, I would not.
No, I agree. Yeah.
You can have Luca Garza. I don't touch. No, don't. I'm like, don't trade anyone. Run it back. I'll trade Rudy.
I just personally like it's another thing. Like the Timberwolves are way more committed to Cat than people realize. So like with all these trade rumors and stuff like that happening, it's like the Timberwolves are not moved by any of that. They're not actually about to trade Cat. Like
Yeah,
people were
he's not going
surprised
anywhere.
when like I don't know, like it's like Cat is gonna be here. I feel like for at least the next 2 years, at least the duration of Rudy Gobert's contract, because I feel like that's the
Yeah,
reason why we traded for Rudy Gobert is for them to play together. So it's like, what'd be the point of separating them at this point? And
right.
especially for Dame, like Dame is a great player, but like that's just like a for me, it just seems like a nerd knee jerk reaction type move where it's just like you're not thinking too much about the franchise that you've been building, which is surrounded around these core four, and then you just make a move like that, it kind of messes up some things. So I think the Timberwolves
Hmm.
kind of need to stop like going like for these trades and whatever, and kind of trying to change the direction around. They're finally starting to build something a little bit and building an identity. So I think in year two of this kind of Rudy Gobert era, I mean, I feel like it's a perfect time to kind of like see what you have. And I think Mike Conley is just fine for the Timberwolves right now, at point guard. So I don't
Yeah,
think there's any rush to kind of change anything, if you're Minnesota. But yeah, just all in all, it just seems like Dame will end up in Miami. It's like a matter of time, like what you've been saying.
yeah, yeah. And Anthony Edwards has shown that he's capable of, kind of being that primary ball handler sometimes too. So
Exactly.
I don't think we're in dire need of that, you know, pure playmaker besides what we already have with Mike Conley. So,
Yeah, you put it perfectly. I mean, maybe in a different era for the Timberwolves, like this would be a good move for them to make to kind of take that
hmm
next step. But I think we're already like in a good spot where we don't need to go for another big star. Like we just need to like kind of build what we have going on right now.